All right. So who liked that activity? A little bit different, right? A little bit different. But who thinks that their minds play tricks on them? Anybody think that their mind played tricks on them at all? Right? You saw it the way you did, and then maybe you hit it because you thought it wasn't there. So sometimes we have questions about things and the way things go. And one of the things, how many people have questions about their brain? Have you ever have questions about how your brain works or whatever, right? Absolutely. Obviously, God created our brains, and they're unbelievable, and they're still not even understood today. And humans have been on the earth for however long as it's been, right? So we can always feel questions and stuff when it comes to stuff like that. But my question for you is today, you can see we're starting a new series called I Have Questions. We're going to spend 4 weeks in this series. All right? I would challenge you. I sent out a bunch of invites yesterday if I had your phone number to do the Bible plan. It's a 20-day Bible plan on the YouVersion Bible. It's a short devotional. It's a little bit of scripture and then like a little reflection. So if you go to your YouVersion Bible on your phone, if you have it, and you type in I Have Questions, grow, it'll come up, and then you can actually go through that as well. If you want me to get with me, I can invite you in so that we can all see each other's comments and stuff as well. It's pretty cool. But I want to try to get, the last series, there was 3 of us. I want to try to at least quadruple that this time. So my question is, to start off, what's something you wish you knew? What's that?
Why can I think of banana over and over again, then behind that I think of pineapple over and over again, and behind that I think of apple over and over again?
Why do we have fruit preferences?
Okay. So why do we have preferences? Sound good. So one of my things, if you were here last week, right, I asked you to write some questions. I didn't ask you to just do it for the heck of it. I asked you to do it for a reason. So here's one of the questions. How did Jonah survive in the whale? Did anybody ever wonder that before? Right? Think about it. Big whale, Jonah gets sucked up, right? Because whales they don't have teeth, they just use their things like a strainer, right? They sucked him in, and he was in there, and then he got back out. But how do you survive in there? Does anybody know? What do you got, Jacob?
All right. Well, I think he was there for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And then he asked God to forgive him.
Right, absolutely. So one of the biggest things is, I'll tell you that this is my answer, and we don't have a real answer, and you can ask God when you get to heaven. Jonah survived because God was with him. That's the most important thing we need to remember, right, is God was with him. But there's more questions up here. One of my favorites is, think about this question. Is ketchup a fruit smoothie? Tomatoes are fruit. So one of the questions you guys asked is ketchup a fruit smoothie? Did that ever go through anybody else's head besides the person who asked it? I've never thought of that before in my life. However, I thought it was a pretty cool question. All right, and then we're going to do one more. There was a good one over here somewhere, I think. Not that they're all not good. Where was that one, Taylor? This one right here. It's good. Where should I start reading the Bible, and how do I do it? In the beginning? You could start in the beginning. I would say that's not necessarily the correct answer, starting in the beginning. What do you got, America?
I thought the same thing. I thought I was supposed to start with the Old Testament and then go to the New. Remember reading Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers? It is just so depressing.
Okay. So she's saying,
All this and that, how they're the tribe of Israel. I was reading the Bible for a couple months, and I had no idea that we were the new tribe of Israel. I was like, why do we even love Jesus or anything like that? We're not Israelites, so yeah.
awesome.
It was terrible.
All right, so honestly, I had this question once before as well. So where did I go? I went to Pastor Jeff, and the answer he gave me is pray about where the best place to start is. But if you want to find a place to start, he told me to start in the book of John. Why do you think, does anybody know why we'd start in the book of John possibly? It's a gospel, right? Really what John is it's all about the life of Jesus. All right? And the pastor's explanation is if you know who Jesus is, you know what Jesus did, and you know that you were created in his image, then you know what to do. Because he's that example to you. So that's why if I'm going to suggest to somebody to start somewhere, I'm going to suggest the book of John because we're supposed to be just like Jesus here on earth. And it's hard. But if we don't know what Jesus is like, then it's hard to be like him. So the Gospel of John really gives us that picture of who Jesus was, what he did, and why he was here, so that we can do it. So that would be my recommendation on where to start. But we have all sorts of crazy questions, and that's what we need to remember is that we have them. And it's okay to have questions. All right, you guys know that I stink at this, so just bear with me. My question, what's something you wish you knew? Right? These were some questions. Does anybody in here have a question they wish they knew the answer to? What's that?
What exactly heaven looks like?
What exactly heaven looks like? All right. Do you have a question or do you have an answer?
I got a question. My question is, why mosquitoes, God? Why mosquitoes?
All right.
But it could have done anything.
Right. So we do. My point is we do have these questions. And like, what is heaven like? You're absolutely right. But we do have a little bit of a glimpse because it is in the Bible. But I don't think we can actually really take that in to really think about it. Because if you thought when you walked outside of these doors that every road in heaven is paved in gold, just stop there. Right? So think about all the roads you travel on in a day. Here in just where you live. In heaven, every one of those is gold. So we think of gold as being this big, astute, valuable thing. In heaven, your roads are gold. Does that tell you how much value there is in everything else, right? It's pretty amazing. So these are great questions to have, but how many people have been in this situation before? Right? Anybody been there this week?
Yeah.
Right? Did I do it? All right. Anyways, right?
It was too easy for me to get stuck.
It is easy to get stuck, right?
Too easy for me.
But the thing is, in school, chances are you've heard or had heard the question before, or you've got the answer was given to you. Not often do you get tested on things that you've never heard of before, right? So, but think about this. How many people have questions on the big things in the world? Right? What are some big questions in the world that we have? Maybe you guys don't have them. I do. Right? So when we keep looking, all right, who's ever thought, that's not what I wanted to do. Whoever thought of some of these things? Right? God, I did it again. Stop. All right? What about world hunger? Anybody wonder about world hunger? How can you make a difference? Why do people starve? Why are there kids in your schools who would love to go to school on a Saturday just so they could get breakfast and lunch? That's real. Why, when we have April vacation or February break or Christmas break, do we have to send boxes of food home with some kids to make sure they can eat throughout the week? That's just here in Rome and Utica and Camden and things like that. We're not talking about Africa and stuff like that. It's right here at home, right? Why do people not have clean water? How many of us run our water like it's just going to go forever? Right? At my house, we're a little bit more careful because we have a well. So like, especially in the summer, like the water's got to be off. Make sure there's and we're always listening to see if toilets are running or if whatever's going on. Because we don't want to, because water's a little bit more. But you got city water, it's like, turn it on. It's no big deal. Has anybody ever been without clean water? How'd that go, Claire?
Well, my place broke, so
Your pipes broke, okay. So how long did you have to live without water? A day. Was it tough? Yeah. All right. I know back in the day when I was in the military, we didn't have clean water. I would go weeks without showering. I didn't smell good. All right? And then when you don't have clean water to drink, and you got to put tablets in it to drink it and stuff, it really doesn't taste like water anymore.
spring water don't taste.
All right? So how many people wonder about this? Violence and war. Why does it happen?
Some people are angry and
Right. Natural disasters. Earthquakes, hurricanes, typhoons, tornadoes, nor'easters. Right? Think about these things. People without medical access for treatable illnesses. Do you know that a lot more people are dying in other countries of COVID than we are here? Because they just don't have the access or vaccines or things like that. And that's just dealing with something that's real to us right now, just in COVID. But malaria, Taylor talked about mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are taking out people left and right in different countries. It's scary, Homelessness. Homelessness is bigger than ever in our country. Homelessness is taking over some cities in our countries. There's some streets you can't even walk down in San Francisco because it's all full of homeless people. It's really scary. And addictions. Why do people get addicted to stuff? Are these ever questions that have gone through your head before? Because really, when we're thinking about other people, these type of questions should. Stop. There. Yes, I did. Really did. All right. So when you think about these things, what do you think about God? What his plan is. That's interesting. How many people gone? How can there be a God if this is going on? Or how many people have heard that before? Right? If your God's so good, then why is this happening? Right? So what's your answer?
Well, the Israelites had to get brought down to their knees a lot of times before they were able to appreciate God.
Okay.
And I think that's what he's doing in our leadership today.
Okay.
This work so that we turn back to God instead of depending on the government.
All right. So, okay, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to say go a little bit further in that, okay? What's the Bible say about God? God works all things for good. So, does that mean that there's somebody who works all things for bad? Yes. We have a true living enemy who's out there, right? Who really doesn't want to see any of you succeed. Doesn't. Because if you can bring somebody else to Christ, that's somebody else that he lost. It's a competition. But we already know who wins the competition, and that's God. So really, when we look at these awful things that are happening, we really got to put the blame where it is. God doesn't make people sick. He's a healer, it says in the Bible. It doesn't say that he brings sickness. Right? So we have to understand where it comes from, and it comes from the enemy. But that gets confusing because we think a lot of people don't realize that part of it and how there's two forces working. We just hear a lot, oh, if your God's so good, then why is this going on? But we haven't seen the victory in it yet, and we really got to think about that. So we see lots of things where there's pain and suffering and things. But the big question is today is when people are hurting, where's God? Who's been hurting before? If it be over a death of a family member, we've had some kids in here who their house have burned down. If it be whatever it may be, have you ever said, where the heck are you, God? Right? And often when we're in those times of trauma or stress or whatever, we're not going to find out where he was. It's really difficult. Okay? But how many people, sometimes they're afterwards of their traumatic event, have you been like, ooh, God was there, I just didn't see him. Have you ever had that happen? All right? And most of the time it is. When we're in it, it's hard. It's like we got blinders on. We're so focused. But then when we take a step back afterwards, we can really see where God was really involved. And it's really cool to see. So today, this is what we're going to be talking about. When people are hurting, where's God? Does everybody know at least one person who's been hurting before? Right? So we can all relate this. This is all relatable to us. Somebody know people who are hurting right now, today. So this is all stuff you can take home with you and be able to use, right? I did it. Have you ever been frustrated with something you didn't understand, or that it was just confusing? These are all the questions that we asked about, right? So what are some of the questions people have? Some of the stuff we just talked about. Well, what else? What's confusing about God to people? Taylor.
Oh, I got one that hurts.
Yeah.
If God is awesome and God is good, why don't his people act like it?
Ooh. Ooh. So is Taylor saying, why are we a bunch of hypocrites?
Because some people don't like,
Look at your life right now. Do like an just like an inner view of your life, and I'm going to do it as well, right? How many parts of your life do you let God into? Do you let him in on Sundays from 10:30 to 12? And that's it? Do you let him in daily? Do you talk to him constantly? Do you go to him first? Or do you go to him last? Do you spend more time on TikTok or YouTube or whatever it may be than you do in your Bible? Then it's really hard not to be confused because you don't know. When we don't know things, it's easy to get confused. But I read the Bible and I try to read it and it's just so confusing. That's what America said. It is. But have you ever asked somebody for help? Have you ever gone and sought out, just other than reading your Bible, gone and used a concordance or looked at footnotes or talked to a leader about something you didn't understand? I used to have a kid who used to come here. He graduated 3 years ago. And each week he would bring me 3 questions. Just stuff he didn't understand about the Bible. And then my homework was for the week is to get the answers, and then the next week we'd talk about it. But you know what? He wanted to know. He made himself available. He thought about it. We can have all these thoughts, but if we keep them to ourselves, we don't do anything about it, the enemy can run wild. Because you know what? If I'm confused by something, it can't be good. If I'm confused by something, I don't want to do it anymore. Right? If you're confused by your math homework, do you really want to do it? Does anybody be like, yes, I'm confused, let me keep going? No, we're like, the heck with this. I've got something better to do. But what if we took it to be learning to know more about God as a challenge? And we wanted to know as much as we could. How much different would our life be? Would we be that hypocritical person that Taylor's talking about if we knew more about God because we knew the way we're supposed to act? Sure, we're still going to screw up. I had to apologize to a student this week. I walked up to a student and said, hey, can you come outside with me out in the hallway? I want to talk to you. I made a mistake. Do people do that? Do teachers do that? You know what? This kid wasn't going to come to my class anymore. He had enough. We're 3 weeks into school. He's a senior. I'm a PE teacher. If he doesn't pass PE, he doesn't graduate. So I had to humble myself and apologize so that I could get him on the right track to get him where God wanted him to be, which is to graduate. So sometimes when things are confusing, we just got to humble ourselves rather than be hypocritical. It would have been easy for me to say, you know what, you don't want to be here, go. But then I would show no value in him, and I would have been hypocritical because God values everybody. Right? So yes, things are confusing, but when things are confusing, let's not give up. When things are confusing, let's dig in. How much different would things be? When the algebra or the calculus or the trigonometry is really hard, rather than say, oh, I can't do it anymore, What if you went to the video that your teacher provided and you really watched and looked at it? Because all of our books are interactive now, and there's a teaching on how to do it. Right? Just think about how things would change. Well, how do I do that with my Bible? There are plenty of good teachers out there. There are plenty of leaders in here who would help you do things. You know, I'm running this devotional with this because I want people to dig in the middle of the week. It takes 5 minutes. I just want you to be involved 5 more minutes. Because the 5 minutes you give will be less confused than you are. And we're all confused. All right? I still don't know what I'm doing here. All right? Where was God? Gosh dang it, dude. Where was God during the Holocaust? Was he there? Yeah. Yeah. Where's God during World War II, World War I, all these wars? He's right there. That's D-Day, absolutely. What's that? Those are duck boats, yep. Where's God right now during COVID? Here. Right here. In all 3 of these things, God's still there. All right? Where's God during 9/11? I didn't. Where's God during 9/11? Was there anything good going on that day? There's a lot of good going on, believe it or not. There are a lot of people who gave their lives up to save other people's lives. All right, we look at this nastiness. All right, but we often don't look at the people who were on the plane going to Pennsylvania that was going to go to the White House, who took over the plane, right? Christian man who helped take that plane over and crash it, and that was good. It was good. Because it could have been a lot worse. Right? School shootings. Columbine. A lot of you guys weren't even alive during Columbine, the real big first school shooting. Where's God? All right? What we need to understand is God is always there. But people make stupid choices. And if people don't know God, then people can make even worse choices. And people have to suffer because of them. Because there's 2 forces working here that we need to understand. All right? And that's not an easy thing. These next 4 weeks are not going to be easy to understand. That's why it's called I've Got Questions. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that in having questions. The thing is we don't want your questions to turn you away from God. We want your questions to turn you to God. Okay? So now we're going to get into a story in the Bible, which is a really cool one. Who knows anything about Esther? Who can give me an overview about Esther? Right. So she became one of the king's queens. All right. She had found favor. However, what we need to remember is kings had lots of wives at this time. She was really choosed on her beauty. She wasn't choosed for anything else. However, she was a woman of God. Right? And really, back in the day, does anybody tell a king what to do? No. What was the consequence of telling a king what to do? Death. People died. Okay? So we're going to get into this scripture here, which is right there. All right? And I'm going to read it from up. Oh, why is it doing that? I didn't do that. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It said, all the kings and the officials of the people, of the royal princes know that for any man or woman who approaches the king of the inner circle without being summoned has but one law, and that they will be put to death unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since I've called to go to the king. So really, if you wanted to talk to the king, he had to give you permission. If not, it was off with your head. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back, I'm having trouble reading, and this one's too close. All right, sent back this answer. Do not think that because you are the king's house, you alone and all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows, but you have come to be a royal position for such a time as this. Who's heard those words before? For such a time as this, right? Esther was put in the place she was for this time, right? She really had to go to bat for all of her people. And it's sort of almost like Jesus, because Jesus went to cross for all of us. Esther was going for all these people, and she understood that one of the consequences of her saying what she could say was she could die. Anybody else want to go take her spot? Anybody want to trade with her right now? No, right? But how many people know that when you're led by God, you're protected? Right? And she was put here for such a time as this. And that is the most important thing to do. We are going to be put in places, and we're going to be put in situations where God is the only one who's put us there. And then we have to realize what our job is to do in it. And that's be obedient to what he says. Okay? So then it keeps on going and says that when Esther decided to act, here's what she said. She approached the king carefully, invited him to a big banquet hall, and made a request for her people. And at the feast, instead of making a request, she invited the king to a second feast and promised to make her request then. But the next day, the king went to Esther's second banquet to hear the request, and she invited Haman. And Haman, does anybody know who Haman was? Who? Who there, Diane? Say again. Say it louder. The person who was trying to kill. So really, it's her arch nemesis. Right? All the people who were trying to kill her people, it is him. He was trying to have him killed, and they're both at the same banquet now. How does anybody think this is going to end? Does anybody think somebody's going to die? Right? Somebody's going to die here. All right? So we go on to read, and this is extremely long. We're going to sort of gloss it here. All right? It said, the king and Haman went to eat at Esther's dinner, and then Queen Esther answered the king, if you like me and it pleases you, please let me live, as I ask you to let my people live too. She asked a big question. Were women really allowed to speak at this time? No. So she's out on the plank, right? When we think about walking the plank, she's at the end of the plank here. All right? She said, can I live and my people live? Big request, right? This is what I ask you, and I ask because the people and I have been sold to be destroyed, to be killed and wiped out completely. If you had just sold us as slaves, I would have been quiet. But that would not have been enough to get rid of the problem to bother the king. And then Xerxes said, who did this to you? He said, where is the man who dared to do such a thing to these people? And she's going to say, dun, dun, dun. Right? Esther said, the man against us is our enemy, and as wicked is Haman. And Haman was filled with terror. Would you be scared at this point if somebody who likes to be ratted out? Right? She just said, it was him. All right? And then it said he begged, and then they decided to kill him. And what did they do? They hung him on a post for all to see. Do not upset the king. All right? Or his wife. Right? Don't upset the king or his wife. So where was God in this?
He was present. He was working through Esther.
You're awesome. He was. He was present in the fact that he put Esther in this place for such a time as this, right? So he was present there. And he was working, and he worked. Can God work through people? Yes. Every one of you are God's tools. Every one of you are God's instruments. But often we don't look at it that way, because we just think that we're just here for the heck of it, right? God can work through any of us. And God was working through Esther, and he can work through you. Esther and God heard the cries of the Jewish people, and they both had enough. But Esther could never have done it if she did it on her own. She wouldn't have had the courage. Right? How many people have had to do something before and they're like, I can't do it. There's no way. I just can't do it. But how many people have, once you've been there and you've really asked God and you've really settled it in your brain, you were able to do what you thought you couldn't do? Right? Absolutely. I really didn't want to apologize to my student this week deep down inside. I didn't. I honestly felt he had to apologize to me. However, God said, you need to take a risk. You need, because this kid has told me, don't talk to me, get away from me, you're not my friend. We're on the 14th day of school. This could be a long year. But I said, you know what, I'm going to take a risk because I know God is with me. I said, I need 30 seconds of your time. He said, okay. I'm like, okay, let's go. And God mended a relationship that could have been really, really fractured and could have really not benefited me or my student this year. I took a risk. It wasn't life or death. I could have just been told, get away from me again, but I wasn't. Okay? So when things look hopeless, understand that God is with you, and it's important. All right, so I need a volunteer up here quickly. Thank you. Are you sure you want to come? All right, you got to do everything I say. I'm not going to hurt you. All right, so we're going to do a little activity here quickly. All right, so I'm going to give you some instructions. All right, the first thing I'm going to do, all right, is I'm going to give you a 12-pound weight.
Yeah.
All right, and you're going to hold it right out in front of yourself. This is corporal punishment. I will go to jail later, but it's okay. All right, so not yet. All right, but on top of that, I'm not just going to do that. I'm going to blindfold you at the same time. Are you afraid to be in the dark?
No.
No? All right, come this way because I want you to be on camera. All right, so I'm going to blindfold you, and I'm going to have you hold the weight out when I tell you. Okay? Just stay there for a second. How many people have felt blinded before? We don't know what's going on. Right? We wish we knew what was going on, but we have no idea what's going on. Right? And sometimes when you're in that place, things can feel really, really heavy. True? Now you can lift up the weight. So this is really what we feel like. We don't know what's going on, and when we don't know what's going on, things are feeling heavy on us, right? Right? And God is with us no matter what. He's there with us, but we don't really realize it. All right? He's there, but it doesn't make a sense. All right? Trust me. And he says, trust me. Right? And then, but it's still, we don't know what's going on. It's heavy. All right? But when it's there, sometimes he comes and he gives us help. If we allow him. And then that weight, when we give it to him, gets a lot less heavy. Right? Does that feel less heavy right now than it did before? Was it tough before?
Yeah.
Right. Can anybody agree with what I'm saying right now? When we try to do things ourselves, it's not easy. But when we let God get in, he takes the weight from us, right? And better yet, ooh, wait, go. There should be one more. There's not. Is there? No? Maybe? There's got to be something there. Yes, there is. All right, guess not. So also when we're there and God's got the weight, he also encourages us, right? Like he's a good coach. So he's there going, you know what? You're going to get through this. I'm with you. I am your strength. I am ever fortress. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. I'm your healer, right? If we really listen to him, he takes the weight. He's our encourager. If we allow him to be. If we don't fill our head with all these things. So think about this. We went from standing by ourselves with all the weight on our shoulders, not knowing what's going on, to now he's lifted the weight, he's encouraged us, and you know what he does? He makes things seen if we let him. All right, you're good. Thank you. All right. When we really think about that illustration, and I'm not going to lie to you, I had to read this like 3 times because I really didn't get it. I struggled with it, right? Because I'm like, I'm trying to get what they're getting at. But then all of a sudden I had the aha. Right? Because I've been where I don't know what's going on, but the weight of the world and the weight of everything of it has been this huge weight on my shoulders. But I also know that when I really come to God and I don't ask him the questions, but I trust him, he takes the weight off my shoulders. He really encourages me and gives me the word. And he's there and he opens up the blinders as well, which is pretty cool. Right? So we've all been through lots and lots of things and stuff. I just want to share 2 quick things with you. Do we know where we are over there? They haven't done anything yet? There, go. We're going to watch this quick video, quick. Right? Because when we think we've got it bad, not necessarily do we always. Now, hopefully, and I don't know all your stories, nobody's been in a situation like that. Right? But who can look at that girl's eyes and not have sorrow for her? Right? But does she live in a place of I've got questions? Or does she live in a place where I'm going to get through it? Right? It's amazing to think of what God can help us get through. And it's okay to have questions. But it's also great to recognize what God's done for us to help us get through those things as well. Right? And that's just one example of it. I want to close with this, I think, on there, maybe right there. Proverbs 29:7. Good people want to do what is right for the poor, but the wicked don't care. All right? Our big takeaway is what today? Did we talk about? I love this thing. We get along really well. What's our big takeaway today? When people are hurting, where's God? We've learned 3 things today. God's present, right? What were the other 2? You shouted them out before. God is present. He is working. And he's working through us. Right? Before we heard it, is he was working through Esther. All right? So when people are hurting, we know that we're all surrounded by people who are hurting in one fashion or another. All right? But all we can do is help people understand that God is there. He's present. That he's working. And we have to ask him what our part is. We're not there to solve the problems of the world. But if God's giving you something to do, we've got to be obedient and do it. Okay? Gotcha. Okay? So we're going to close with that. Like I said, this is the first week of I've Got Questions. We're going to continue to get into them. This week, like I said, if you want to get into the devotional study, get with me. I can show you how to do it. Some of you guys have an invitation if I had your phone number and stuff. It's not that I didn't want to leave anybody out. I just don't have everybody's phone number. So we got that. Remember that Friday night is game night here, 6:30 to 8:30. Or, sorry, 6:30 to 10:30. We'll be here. There'll be snacks. We'll have a good time. Things like that. I'm going to put something out through Remind this week. I'll put something out through the church Facebook page. And I'll put something out through the church app. So have your parents be on the lookout for that if they're plugged into those things. And that's really about it. So we'll pray. Dear Lord, we just thank you for today, Lord. Lord, we thank you that you are with all of us, Lord. But today we thank you that you're with hurting people as well. And you are every day, Lord. So as we go forth, Lord, and questions continue to mount in our heads, Lord, of where you are, how you can be a good God, where we go back to what we talked about, Lord. That growing deeper in you will allow us to see who you are and why things happen, Lord. And we might not have all the answers, Lord, but that's where faith comes in, to know that you work all things for good, Lord, that you are our strength, that you are our healer, that you are our redeemer, Lord, and that you love us, and that's the most important thing. So we thank you. We ask that we have a good week, and we give you all the praise and glory. And everybody said, Amen. You are free to be free.